Is Jon Jones over the hill? I think a lot of people are asking that right now. I've been asking myself that question a lot lately. A little housekeeping out of the way first. I should tell you how I feel about Jon Jones. I have been accused over the last 10 years of being the biggest Jon Jones nut writer out there. I think he's the best. I think that when there's the conversation about who's the greatest of all time, I don't think that there is a conversation. I think Jones is way out ahead of the pack. There's an argument that Demetrius was just as good as Jon, but I think it's easy to be as good as somebody who's, 225 pounds when you're, 100 pounds. Anderson belongs in the conversation, but I think Jones would whoop Anderson's ass. I think the middleweight division was kind of light while Anderson was on top. GSP is the only real, I think, one who can maybe take that title from Jon. That being said, I think during Jon's heyday, I think Jon was the best wrestler in the division. I think he could hang with anybody on the ground. I think he could strike with anybody. And I think he could put all of those skills together in a way that nobody has done. I think, Jon Jones is the fucking man. I think he makes fights not that interesting. That being said, his last two fights, the fight before Reyes, he fought Thiago Santos. And if you watch that fight, Thiago Santos won those first two rounds. I think he lost the next two. And then in the championship round, if it wasn't for the optic of Thiago Santos sliding all around the cage, barely able to stand on his legs because they were so jacked up, if it wasn't for that look, if you change nothing about that round, you just watch it for what it was, I think Thiago arguably won the round, but because of that look and those knee stabs that Jon likes to do, every time that happens, you'd cringe. You'd be like, oh my God, that must be hurting so bad. So I think Jon won that fight, but there's a real argument there that Thiago could have won that fight. I mean, on practically two broken legs, the fact that he did that well, if he had been okay, I mean, you got to think Thiago would have won that fight. In his last fight, this last one that I'd say 80% of people think Jon lost, I think the same thing. I think Jon lost that fight. I think he lost the first three rounds, and I think it's pretty obvious that he lost those rounds. I don't think it's a big debatable thing. He obviously won the next two rounds. I think Jon on social media lately, he's doing something that I'm not proud of him for. I think it's kind of embarrassing. I think it's a real bad look, but he is saying that he won the fight because of takedowns. He is also saying he won the fight because he controlled the center of the ring, and he's saying he won the fight because he won the championship rounds. All three of those arguments are, except for maybe the ring generalship one, the other two are stupid. To say you won the fight because of takedowns, well, you only got takedowns in the fourth and fifth rounds. The takedowns didn't really do anything, and those aren't the rounds that are being contested, so it's kind of an embarrassing argument. The championship rounds thing, the championship rounds don't count for more points. If you're going to argue that you won the championship rounds so you win the fight, then that's making the argument that those are the only rounds you have to win. And that's a bad look. That's fucking stupid. That's silly. The only argument that he does have that he should put any weight on whatsoever is that in Texas, advancing is you are scored well for advancing. So if you want to argue the third, people argue the second. If you want to argue it under the Texas rules, I guess you have an argument. I still think you lost the fight, but I guess you have an argument there. The fact that he's making these other arguments, I don't think that's a good look. I think it makes him look bad. I'm not a fan of it. I wish he would stop. Doing that. But to the question at hand, is Jon Jones over the hill? Long story short, for me, the answer is no. I don't think he's over the hill. I think he's still got some wins left in him, but there's a lot of caveats to that. Has Jon slowed down? I rewatched his fight with Shogun Rua last night, and I was like, "Fuck, man, it's hard to." If you haven't watched that fight in a long time, go back and watch that fight, and then watch his recent fights, and you tell me if that's the same person, because it's not. Jon, throughout his career, he fights on a drum beat. It's this like drum beat kind of pace. It's this slow, methodical pace. Early in his career, though, I would say that drum beat was a lot faster, and sometimes it would boom, boom, boom. But now it's just and it's a single shot, high variance. He mixes up what he does, so to confuse you. He does a lot of that. He confuses you a lot. But it's that beat has slowed down, and he's not putting together shots anymore. I'd also argue that he's not half as creative as he used to be. He doesn't do a bunch of wild shit that people have never seen before. His takedowns have suffered. He obviously doesn't have the same kind of wrestling that he used to. So there's three things right there. He doesn't have the same takedowns as he used to. His offense has suffered. It's not as much offense, and it's not nearly as creative. So those three things, Jon has suffered. He has gone downhill as far as those things are concerned. I mean, he still is a great ring general. He still has an iron chin. He hasn't lost his chin. He has the heart of a champion. Nobody digs deeper than Jon Jones. He has got such a will to win. And I think everybody should be impressed by it. So no, not over the hill. He's slowed down, though. Why? The question is, why do I think he slowed down? I think there's three reasons he slowed down. And I'll go from most likely to least likely. Age. He's only 32 years old, but he's been having championship training camps since he was 23. So for 9 years, he's been training for 5-round fights, and he's been having for 5-round fights. That'll make a 32-year-old body feel 42. I think that he's got a lot of miles on him, and I think it's slowing him down. Also, he's been doing this a long time, and maybe he's getting comfortable. Maybe it's getting boring. Maybe he just isn't where he used to be as far as like the passion for the sport is concerned, which, kind of leads me into the second reason I think he might be slowing down is maybe he's just not getting up to fight Thiago Santos or Dominic Reyes, who are dangerous opponents, but they're not particularly well known. Jon fights for his legacy, and how big of a legacy pusher is it going to be that you beat Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes? Two guys nobody really knows. Those aren't huge wins. It's going to put another number next to your number of title defenses, so it's good for your legacy in that regards. But as far as it's not like beating DC or, his win over Shogun or Rampage or, all the legends that he beat. Those were really good for his legacy, that he was the legend killer when he came out. So I think he's having a hard time getting up for these fights. I think if he fought Stipe, DC again, or Israel, I think that he would get up for that training camp. I think we're going to see a better Jon Jones if he just had a bigger name fight in front of him. I really do. I think if he fights Dominic Reyes again, I think he's going to get up for that training camp. He fucking better get up for that training camp because Dominic beat him. He lost that fight. Last reason that I think that Jones, maybe, this is like a theory, maybe Jones has lost a step because he's tamed his dark side. I've been reading this book called Relentless, and it's about the psychology, the mind of greatness, and there's a whole chapter about how every icon, every legend ever has had a dark side that they feed this wolf in the back of their minds, and they feed that creature, and everybody knows Jon has a dark side. Everybody knows about all of the stuff that his behind the scenes stuff, but he swears that he is doing better now and he's not doing all that stuff. And that might actually be true. Maybe he's not being such a wild man anymore, but that might also be why he's losing a step. He's losing that wild man. He's taming his dark side. He's taming that, the wolf in him, the predator. That's a theory. I don't know if that's true. The other two things I'm pretty sure of, age and motivation. I think those are catching up with them. Was there anything else in there? No, I think that's it. Do I think Jon's over the hill? No, I don't think he's over the hill. I think he's in trouble, though. I think he better get some big name fights in there. I think that's where we'll see the best Jon Jones. I think he keeps fighting. He fights Corey Anderson or Jan Blachowicz. I think he'll beat Jan, but he might be in trouble, man. I think these killers who nobody knows about, I don't think he's getting up for those fights, and I think that could spell the end to Jon. So yeah, that's about it. If you liked the video, like, comment, and subscribe. This is my first video, so I'm sure I'm going to get better at this. I'm sure this is kind of jacked up. I'm new at this, so it'll get better. If you disagree with what I said, let me know in the comments below. I want all the smoke, so give me your hate. Give me your hate. If you want to see my next video, it's going to be about Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz. I can't say that name. The Polish Hammer. Corey and the Polish Hammer. I'm going to watch all their fights, and I'm going to break down their skill sets, and I'll have a video where I talk about who I think is going to win and whether I think they're going to beat Jon. All right, y'all. Later.